Lalit Modi suddenly announced IPL. So a few years back, in GroupM only, he was that time, I think, the treasurer of BCCI. There was some meeting and we had actually gone and made a presentation to him. They were coming out with rights. We had done our own analysis of what TV rights could recover both in Indian markets and international markets. Cadbury loss was a big one because we were doing really outstanding work for them. But at that point in time, for whatever reasons, they went into a global regional mode and therefore we had to lose that account. That one hurt. For all of us in our agency world, I think holding on to business is a very important thing. What I value, cherish was Unilever, which it was pitched and retained. I've been an unabashed Madison fan in my client days, and of course, an unabashed Sam fan. So for me, it was a fanboy moment of sorts to actually get a chance to be a partner with him. Because now, willy-nilly, marketers are looking for return on marketing investment like never before. At times, they're overly obsessed with that, which is why the pendulum is going the performance way. Look, finally, why is a guy doing a pitch? He wants to get to be in a better position for where he is right now. So you have to truly understand the landscape and say, okay, what is he not getting today that we think we can bring to the party? Without a doubt, that one moving to the agency side was my risky but game-changing decision.
Vikram, welcome to Sultan Conversations. It's a pleasure having you here.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Perfect. So Vikram, you've had an illustrious career in media and advertising with FMCG, GroupM, Madison. You've been in global roles, so we'll cover a lot of those in our conversations. So let us sort of dial back and go at the beginning. Can you just give us a sense about your education, your early childhood, and some of the early influences that you had in your career?
I've grown up a Delhi boy, so I did my schooling in Delhi Modern School and then I went to IIT Delhi. So yeah, pretty much that entire initial part was there. I would say from an early influencer standpoint, I'd call out two things really. One, my mother. Actually, my dad unfortunately passed away very early when I was about 9 years old. So she's had an amazing influence to play in just shaping the kind of person I've sort of become over the years. And the second, I think, influence at that point in time was comics. I used to be exposed to a bunch of Western comics, and people have probably not even heard of them now. Beanos, Dandies, the old Sad Sacks, Little Lulus. Now people don't know of those, but I grew up on comics, and I think that gave me an amazing worldview as well as some kind of an idea of how people think in a way.
Okay. So comics.
Yeah. The entire Asterix, Tintin, the entire bit, right from the beginning.
Wonderful.
So yes. And otherwise, what? Otherwise, it's been I'd say a pretty sheltered childhood, good fun.
Nice.
But yeah.
So perfect. So now sort of that was your childhood. Now when you sort of moved into, I think when your earlier jobs were in FMCG with P&G and I think Coke.
That's right.
So can you just sort of walk us through some of those experiences, some learnings over there, some interesting things, because FMCG back in the 90s was much different from what it is now. Any early good memories or bad memories?
No, some wonderful memories. So look, when I left, when I was passing out of IIM Calcutta in '88, that was the time when P&G was entering India. They had acquired Richardson Wicks, Richardson Hindustan in India. So in fact, I got my appointment letter from Richardson Hindustan and my joining was in P&G. So literally at the cusp. The exciting part was because, yes, whatever great marketing that we learned in business school, I really thought that the mecca of marketing was P&G. And because we were hungry in India to pick up the P&G way in Richardson and RHL, I think we overcompensated. So we were like sponges. So they had this wonderful new product launch model. So at that point in time, I was involved in most of like Ariel was the first big launch that we did. Whisper, Pantene, all of these one was involved in. And I think what you learned from P&G was a few things. The marketing principles are very strong. there's an entire new product launch process. To date, I can still use that as a model. I don't think that goes out of fashion, whatever be the environment. So I think that is the entire focus on understanding consumers. I think that is one has picked up over the years from there. I think the definition of marketing being getting more people to consume more of a brand more often at a higher price.
Ah,
Now that I think is a that I picked up more from Coke, but it's sort of also in PNG. In PNG, it was important of volume forecasting. You know, in business school, they teach you all the 4 Ps and other aspects of marketing, but how to convert it into a demand engine, I think, is something which probably the business schools don't do that much of, and that comes front and center when you come into these so-called FMCG. I think the business these companies like PNG and after Coke, I think they really bring this to the fore. So I'd say yes, there were some fantastic learnings, great product launches, learning on the back of launches. I also got my first exposure to media in both market research and media, and I think these have been the two foundations on which my career has been built more on media. But I think thanks to the kind of industry role I'm playing on measurement and stuff like that, I think research has also had a big role to play, which I think in the foundation of that was in PNG. I think on the Coke side, I would say probably the game moved from PNG, which is very functional marketing, superior product, how to make sure that you actually sell, build brands on the back of superior products, into Coke, which is there's no the product superiority is not the question that you're selling an idea and a emotion and an image, and that how to do that entire so-called intangible image-based marketing, and how you use other things apart from advertising, stuff like sponsorship, promotions, all those kind of things. I think that really became the stuff that one learned in Coke. It also, so yeah, so I would say that two different kind of learnings. One was classical marketing and how to build sort of brands and how to develop brands and then how to advertise them. And Coke was much more about using the other levers of marketing.
do you think the world has changed now? Because in that era was a classical way of building brands, and also that imagery and all the subtle nuances of a brand sort of stayed with you. Today, do you see a lot of brands sort of going that same route? Or I think today most brands are sort of more transaction oriented. They sort of want that sale to happen fast. You see that?
No, you're right. I think that's what's happening, but I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think they need to learn, certain aspects of marketing don't change. And I'll repeat, this was the Sergio Zeman who used to be the global head of Coke. His definition of marketing, it was getting more people to try more of a brand more often at a higher price. And I think that at a higher price is an important point. In an environment where today there's a lot of discounting that goes into the entire performance marketing that we're talking about, brand building is all about trying to be able to charge a command a premium for your brand. And that happens when you own a place in the consumer's heart and mind. And that happens only when you have a very strong proposition. And that's where all the stuff that we just spoke a little bit earlier in PNG and Coke. I mean, come on, bro. I remember I launched Sprite in 97 or 98 it was. That time what we launched it with the thing of Sprite ko jaye pyas, baki sab bakwas.
Oh yeah, I remember
That was my launch. And at that point in time, I mean, we just took the playbook from Atlanta on basically cutting out the pretensions and actually presenting a soft drink for what it is, which is thirst, great tasting. And on the back of that, built a brand. Now, Sprite is probably the largest brand in India, or at least was some time back, probably still is. So I think, the fact is, that wouldn't have happened with just performance marketing.
correct.
So, or transactional stuff. So, you got to be able to form the brand, a position in your heart and mind. And that's what I think classical marketing is about. And I think, unfortunately, some of it is being forgotten. So,
Any of your clients in your roster, either at Madison or your previous assignment at Mindshare, GroupM, which you think have sort of built up a great brand and sort of espouse the brand values? Any of your brands in your current assignment at Madison or with GroupM before have actually followed this playbook of building a brand, a classical brand, the traditional marketing way?
I think so many, all the great brands that are there in the country have initially started their work that way. If I have to look at from my current client roster in Madison, if you have to look at, for example, the Pidilite stable,
Yeah.
whether you talk Fevicol and the entire Dr. Fix-It and Feviquick, and think about even a simple, even a brand that you otherwise don't see all the time, like mseal. You still remember mseal advertising, a boon pani, some,
Correct.
it. Now this is the power of advertising, that you don't even advertising that stays with you. The old fisherman commercial where he takes a
yeah.
things, puts on the stick, comes it out. People still talk about it. No, what is that? No, that is the power of creator. That's power of the idea, and over time, it is now it's building that memory structure for which you remember the brand. So in today's day and age, we are talking about attention, memory, and response. And we find that certain times brands need to dial up attention and therefore spontaneous or awareness, just being seen out there. Otherwise, it's all about dialing up a memory and trying to see what you stand for, and sometimes it's response. So that entire equalizer has to be played carefully. So a lot of brands are doing it. It's not that they're not. But I just feel that the I mean, take Asian Paints. I think Asian Paints has built such a brilliant brand on the back of. I mean, it started with started Har Ghar Kuch Kehta Hai. That's again an advertising idea, and in whatever forms they've actually tried to, they've held on to their leadership forever. I mean, you take Titan, tanishq, and the way there's tanishq is also growing from strength to strength. Titan too. All of them are built around the basic idea of advertising.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think all brands, the great brands are all doing it. I think some of the new age brands are the ones that are coming in probably with the idea of customer acquisition at any price, and then building a brand. And it's a journey, and I would encourage them to also embrace not just the short term measurable results, but also the slightly long term and slightly difficult to measure results.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the endeavor. So we can now moving on to your role at Mindshare, and then obviously GroupM CEO. Can you just sort of walk us through some notable wins over there, or notable clients that your pitches that you're involved with over there?
That was a 14-year thing, so obviously there were lots. If I have to,
So give us 2 or 3 examples.
Okay, let's see which are the wins that for all of us in our agency world, I think holding on to business is a very important thing. And I think at least from those days, what I value, cherish was Unilever, which is we have to be pitched. It was pitched and retained 3 times on my. For 12 years, I was in the South Asia, India operation, and 2 years I was doing a global job. But in those 12 years, there were 3 times when we retained it each time. Vodafone we retained, Nokia we retained. I think those are good. I think one of the pitches that we won, which is a bit
can you talk about the clients who retained? What goes into retaining a client? Can you just sort of for
Look, at
audiences?
this point, I think the constant reinvention is very important, because typically what happens for an incumbent is there's a high degree of comfort, and normally the operational stuff is pretty smooth because you've been doing it for a while. There is that comfort. The inner pitch is the time when you really have to take stock and actually reimagine what your proposition for the client can be. And I think that is where, especially for clients like Unilever, because they're a class marketer, right? They're cutting edge. They are best in the world kind of thing. So how to look at media and actually come back and say, this is what more we can bring for you. I think each time it was a sort of almost like our entire agency redefining, because you actually go through the entire drawing board. You go to the drawing board and try to figure out what you need to do in your processes, products, tools, marketing philosophy, all of that. So I think all those required a rethink, and we came out okay. So that was good. Another one which I found, that's in fact one of the fun one, and I really treasured it, was the IPL pitch. So I remember that's just like anecdotes. I'll tell you, it's an interesting one. Now, this was, I think, 2008, on the back of ICL, which was a bit of a, well, not a success. So Lalit Modi suddenly announced IPL. So a few years back, in GroupM only, we had he was that time, I think, the treasurer of BCCI. There was some meeting, and we had actually gone and made a presentation to him. They were coming out with rights. So we had done our own analysis of what TV rights could recover both in India markets and international markets. And we had made that presentation to them. At that point in time, the number that we had given him, I still remember the number, $290 million. He used that as he said, fine, thank you very much. He took that number and he put 325 as the reserve price.
Okay.
And finally, it went to $612 million. So now at that point in time, that was then, so maybe 2.5 years, 2005, 6 it was. So in 2008, when we went to him, we tracked everything that we had told him for that and came back and said, listen, we've gone series by series. This is what we told you. And actually, our numbers are pretty correct. And the 612 is not something that's actually going to happen. And fact is that it wasn't. And we said this time around, when it comes to IPL, you got to be careful because whatever you get from TV rights has now got to be also distributed amongst 8 team owners in those days. So at that point in time, I said, that's a double whammy. So he said, don't worry, I'm actually covered by a revocable bank guarantee, but I like the way you think. So this was proactively, we went to him. He just announced it. I remember in those days, there were two guys, Sundaraman and Ajit Varghese. Ajit Varghese is now my successor CEO in Madison.
Oh,
And of course, we worked together so long in GroupM. The other guy, Sundaraman, he was managing part of Mindshare at that point in time. So he, of course, went on to become the CEO of IPL later. So I remember we were just three of us talking when it had been announced. So he said, we need to go and get this. So they had said that, can you get us a meeting? I said, "Hey, let's try. So I called up Lalit's office and we got a meeting and we had this. The rest is history. So we worked with him and he was, I must say, it was very, very exciting working because it was very result oriented. We had to deliver the marketing that we had to deliver certain TV ratings, which it did. It had to get certain stadium occupancy, which it did. So it turned out to be a huge success.
Oh yeah, IPL is the biggest.
So I think that was the way we approached that pitch proactively, and then in fact, and then of course the aftermath. I think that has been something memorable.
Oh, wonderful! That's quite an interesting story. Anything else besides this? Any interesting wins which you thought you were going to win but you lost? Anything of that sort that has happened? Any losses which hurt you?
So look, in the Madison case, I think the Cadbury loss was a big one because we were doing really, really outstanding work for them. But at that point in time, for whatever reasons, they went into a global regional mode, and therefore we had to lose that account. That one hurt. That one really hurt. And
those are cases where there's not much you can do. If there's a global realignment, you just have to.
Fair enough, but it still hurts.
Yeah.
So I would say that yes, losing a pitch that you're trying to sort of, which is not your current client. Of course, if you lose that, you feel bad. But if you lose an incumbent, you feel much worse. That's when you really need to soul search and say, what could you have done better? And it again boils down to please never take your clients for granted, and you have to constantly reinvent yourself. So so the learnings are there from there.
You also had a stint with Maxus in the UK as well. Can you talk us about some of those experiences over there? Any Joey clients?
It was in August or September of 2012 that Martin announced me become the global CEO of Maxus. So at that point in time, he was very keen to position it as the first global Indian CEO out of India kind of thing.
Okay.
So in fact, for the record, the first 7-8 months something, my base was India, and of course I was hardly here. I was constantly on a flight, and but it was only I would say well into 2013 that I moved not to London, I moved to New York, and from there I was doing my job, and then at that point in time, I think for me the big learning was what is the kind of role a CEO needs to play in a global CEO needs to play for, because I'm a very roll up your sleeves, hands on kind of guy when you're running a business, and global CEO you can't do that, right? There's so many markets, each market is running its own business. So what is the value that you can actually try to bring in from a global standpoint? So that was, I think, a good learning for me. I think what I was able to bring to the picture was, I would say, the one thing that probably markets are looking for is a bit of empathy, because typically a global CEO, when you walk into a market, you you stand to ceremony. Really, you are there and you might be taking to a client. You might, but frankly, it's those are not meaningful conversations. You know, unlike, for example, my then super boss, means WB, when Martin comes in or used to come in WPP that time, he would come in, actually meet clients, know their problems, try to solve them. So he was again hands on in his own way. But, and of course, he had the entire benefit of being doing that for so many years. The very first year when you get into a global job, it's very difficult for you to actually have that much intimate knowledge of clients in local markets. And Maxus, unlike say a mindshare or maybe an MEC at that point in time, had the lowest number of global clients. It was still an agency network which was developed more out of local relationships. So there, really, the job was you go try to see what are the kind of problems local guys have. Try to, I think the value I could bring in is I've always had a P&L orientation, and P&L is not something that most agency people are that comfortable with. So that's an area where you can actually add some value and say that if you look at the business A, B, C, D ways, possibly you can actually deliver better numbers. So you're trying to offer that kind of advice. I don't think I could help anywhere in the terms of building client relationships at a very, very local level. I didn't even start on that point. So I think it was very interesting, very enriching at that point in time. And I think the joy that I got out of it was just visiting maybe 15, 16 countries at that point in time, the key ones, and just understanding. So just increasing my exposure and maybe bringing in some value to them.
In your time at GroupM as a CEO of Southeast Asia GroupM, what is the scale of the business? Can you give us a sense of the scale of the business in terms of number of clients, billings? What is a
God, now I'm going to struggle with numbers now. It's a while, but I think what is satisfying is that we were about GroupM. We were about a roughly 40 share, 40, 42 share. We were able to hold the share. We were able to get the growth. Uh, I think I managed between 25 and 30% compounded growth rate across that period. That was also a time when growth was happening. It was easier than it is now. Um, I think we've had, again, from both a revenue and a profit standpoint, a pretty decent growth run in Madison also. So I think it's been, from that standpoint, we've been able to scale our business pretty well. Now I don't know what specifically you'd like to probe down that path, because running a business, of course, is that's where the table stakes lie. So I think we've done a decent job of growing both top line and bottom line, both in GroupM and now in Madison. But if there's a specific question that you have,
No, I think I was just trying to understand the scale of the business that you managed as a GroupM CEO of Southeast Asia. But if
So-
the numbers are sort of hazy right
yeah, and I'm not
sort of
going to
that's-
actually go around. I think for that, best is to look at the whole RECMAs or the convergence, and you can see from that.
So Vikram, one point to touch upon is is kind of difficult to do business now in today's environment where there's too much of competition. What's your sense of the too many independent agencies that have come up and some of them have built scale? So they're obviously getting into launch of all the network agencies. You think how do you see this industry sort of evolving or shaping up in the next short term? Because the entry barriers are low for some of them. So, at least in digital front, I see a lot of agencies coming in. So, and some of them have gained scale.
No, the fundamental change that's happened is that now willy-nilly marketers are looking for return on marketing investment like never before. And maybe at times they're overly obsessed with that, then which is why the pendulum is going the performance way. But I don't
Is it
think
also because of big tech giants are sort of pushing them that way? Because
obviously, no, but no, it's clearly, but the fact that globally upwards of 60% of money is going into digital, and on the global tech giants, whatever, the Google, Meta, Amazons are the ones, TikTok outside of India, all of these are the big ones which are grabbing. There's a bunch of amazing technology that they're using. Look, in entertainment media, what do? We where to spend money allocation, the entire attribution. If we spent money, what did it do? And the entire optimization piece. So how can we do the same thing with less money? Now that is where these tech guys are very, very good. And I think where you're very clear about what to measure, that is behavior, they do a very good job. But right now, the part which we started the conversation with, stuff that goes on in the heart and mind, that's not behavior.
That's not behavior.
That, frankly, the tech guys are doing a very pedestrian job of. You have something stupid like brand lift studies, and you might come back and say, okay, how much has your awareness gone up? But that's, I mean, given the complete brain surgery kind of cutting edge tech which is happening on the behavior side, if you have to see what's happening in mind measures, it's almost laughable. And so, and I think everybody realizes that. But it's obviously a tougher game to play. It's easier to measure behavior now. How's it? But I think if we don't crack that, I think people are going to not have enduring brands. So I think that is something which today's day, I think that's a fundamental change that's happened. Now, how to fix for it is the whatever $600 billion question, or maybe now $1 trillion question if you have to look at the global advertising market. So
Some of it is honestly seems unfixable. It's like a one-way street, So I think everybody is sort of going down the gravy train. It seems to be like
no, I think
one-way
there
street
are
at
some
all.
marketers. There are enough marketers who are also talking about the importance of branding, but the part where their CFO, their internal pressures are coming in is there is a demand to show that what is the return that you're getting on that, and that's where it's less precise. So people are then defaulting, and that's where if I actually find the Indian and entrepreneur-led companies are probably doing a better job because they instinctively get it that why they have to build brands. So even if they may not be a linear ROI thing to it, they can do that. The people who are right now going completely the MarTech route are probably overcompensating. MarTech, don't get me wrong, is very important, but it's not the entire thing.
Absolutely, just one of the components.
So, yeah, so that's now becoming, people are getting over obsessed with that. So that's one. But that's
Got you.
it's not for me to change, it's for self-realization. But
Absolutely. So Vikram, now moving on to your sort of current assignment in Madison. Can you just sort of give a sense of in the last 10 years that you've been with Madison, in notable wins, interesting initiatives that you have taken, part of,
no, so
and how's the transformation been? Because Madison, obviously is an Indian grown media agency. And
no,
how do you compete with?
10 years, it's been a long time. So no, firstly, it was a privilege and a joy to work with Sam. So I've always been, I'm in fact, when I was in PNG, I played whatever small role in organizing the pitch where the first ever buying EOR in India was Madison.
Okay. Oh,
And after that, when I moved to Coke, and that time I was a little bit more senior, so I was actually ran that pitch out there. And again, the media agency, despite pressure coming from global agencies and all that, we gave the business to Madison. So I've been an unabashed Madison fan in my client days, and of course, an unabashed Sam fan. So for me, it was a fanboy moment of sorts to actually get a chance to be a partner with him. So that said, I think, and then that of course has been the last 10 years have been fantastic, and thank God to touch wood, all that brilliant. I think what I've been able to probably bring to the party is one is I think I was able to bring the P&L orientation amongst our managers, and I made this called this out before also, but I truly believe that look, for a long time advertising wasn't really considered a serious business, which it should have been, and I think to treat it like a business that we are responsible for revenues and profits. That is something which I try to inculcate amongst our people. Second is I have this, we've over the years really built a lot of capability across various aspects of marketing, whether it is, I mean, you take all the touch points, whether it's TV, media, TV, print, radio, digital, within digital, all the various things, outdoor activation, rural, sport, sponsorship, everything. We have built PR. We've got to build a lot of stuff within the Madison World system. We had the capabilities. But it was probably running too much in silos, and my job was to actually try to bring it together so you could bring a holistic thing. So I think that has been an effort, and I think it's paid some dividends. The third is, I think, since we are a media agency, how to leverage the investments that we are working with, and clients also would like to get the benefit of size and scale. I was able to bring some of those things into it. So I think I would say these three, I was able to make some kind of difference, and I think it's been okay.
Wonderful. So Vikram, again, I'm going to sort of go back and forth a little bit. I'm fishing for more anecdotes, more interesting case studies that if you think there are any more interesting, like you gave the IPL example, which is beautiful. Any other such examples where that sort of stand out in your long career? And it could be anything. It could be something.
I'm trying to contextualize it. So probably in GroupM, my two things I'll talk about GroupM incidents, and I think these I cherish quite a lot. When I took over the GroupM mandate, I was running mindshare, and then from there in 2000, was it 6? I think, yeah, 2006, I took over the GroupM South Asia head. So at that point in time, you have these. That time, the fourth agency was, because that there was mindshare, Maxus, and MEC. Mediacom, the fourth GroupM agency. Incidentally, there was 51% Sam owned that time.
Okay.
So I wasn't running that. I was just running the other three as part of GroupM. Now, globally as well as in India, to an extent, there was a fair amount of competition within the three agencies. And as a holding company, GroupM, we weren't being able to sort of leverage the scale to the extent that we wanted. So at that point in time, we had our own executive committee, the EXCO as we called it. So I embarked on a visioning and values exercise, and it sounds very fluffy, but at least at the end of that, we were able to give meaning and shape to what a holding company can be. And I think there's certain aspects of that which have really withstood the test of time. We created there were a few things. The entire game was around choreographing convergence. And in fact, I launched a award called Choreos, and we had certain values, and whoever exemplifies those values, we actually give them a choreo at the end of the year.
This was an individual award that was given.
Individual and a team award, both of them. They were both individual and for against certain values, and we called it choreo. Now that was in 2007 we did that, and I think even until 2025 it's been happening every year. So it's obviously something which has it's a glue which holds together GroupM. I think that's been part which that entire mission exercise that I did was actually, I think, very, very good. The other one was end of day, as a historical sort of legacy, you could call it. When GroupM was formed, it was formed from the media departments of JWT and Ogilvy. JWT and Ogilvy had 30% employee shareholding. So willy-nilly, there was a 30% GroupM India shareholding. As it turned out, 8% was with people who had migrated from those two agencies into GroupM, but 22% was still held by the people still in Ogilvy and JWT. My immediate thing was when I took over the GroupM role is, I said, there's a huge opportunity for being able to give back value to the people who are creating it within GroupM. So I embarked on this entire thing of being able to buy back the shares from the agencies and from JWT, HTA and Ogilvy, and then make a share scheme which we could then give to our GroupM India people. I was successful in doing that, and I think that has been, again, I think it's been a huge enduring value provider for that company. In fact, probably
so they're like ESOPs given to employees.
Yeah, it's a share scheme. So it's a share grants that are given. So they get dividends from those share grants, and at the time when they're leaving the company, they sell the shares back at a certain sort of share value, which is declared. So I think the dividends alone these days is for some of the legacy people who've been around for a long time, it's massive as compared to, as a percentage of the salaries and it's probably multiple of that.
Will it be in crores of rupees?
So let's not. I mean, okay, I'm sure yes, for some people it will well be into that. So I think the value creation. So as a result, it's probably been one of the best retention tools, and it's also I also believe that it's something which people, you actually feel a sense of ownership because you're seeing the direct returns. You're creating value, and the value is coming back to you. What can be a better
So
gratification?
it's like a skin in the game, sort of a
Yeah,
is the most
absolutely.
important.
Exactly. Skin in the game is the exact word. So I think these two in GroupM, the visioning exercise and the share scheme would probably be, and to some extent, the learning and development program that I was able to put in place there. These are the three things which actually I cherish quite a lot because I think it helped build the roots of a strong organization.
Wonderful. Okay, Vikram, I'm just going to shuffle between some questions. Which is your favorite movie on advertising? Movie sitcom on advertising. I'm sure you've seen Mad Men. Most people tell me Mad Men is your favorite. Which one is your favorite?
Uh, okay, to be different, I'll say Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Moneyball also is very good.
Moneyball. So your favorite movies are Jerry
I
Maguire.
mean, I'm more on the media side, deal making and all things like that. No, so those things excite me more.
What do you think are the keys to success in media and advertising for an individual? What are the keys to success?
Gosh, okay. Look, starting point is you must have a passion for brands. If you're doing this as just another job, then you'll be just another Joe. If you want to stand out, then somewhere almost all the greats that we've had in our industry, um, they've they truly take make it their mission to sort of build brands. So I think passion for brands and what a brand stands for, and having that conviction that a brand should outlive the life of a brand should definitely outlive our lives. No, I think increasingly people who don't see that will see brands getting born and dying within a decade, which is, and but the enduring brands go on for hundreds of years.
But how do you see
So
this passion in an individual? Can you spot that passion? Any examples you have of teammates, colleagues, competitors that you have seen that this guy in Hindi we say kira hai. Do you
yeah, of course you can. You pick it up in people. You're talking to them. You just start a conversation, and that's where it comes up. Look, in my case, I don't know. Yeah, I was in engineering. I was very clear that when I went for my fourth, I was a 5-year engineer. Those days IIT used to be 5 years. When I went for my fourth year industrial training, I said, "Gosh, shop floor is not my scene." And I mean, I'm not proud of it, but I didn't, and it wasn't my scene. At that point in time, I was always finding myself a little bit more interested in the qualitative aspects of things. So psychology and other things. And then, when I worked for 2 years before I did the MBA. At that point in time, I was very clear that I'd love to, it turns me on at that point in time why people buy what they buy. So it was just on a key, right? It was like that. And then I pursued those kind of subjects more in, in business school. And in business school, certain people get classified as finance guy, systems guy.
correct?
I was the marketing guy, and the few of us were. And I just I stayed true to that right pretty much through my career. So I'd say passion for brands. I'd say second one is I think if you have that conviction, then you'll stick to that. I believe Rolling Stones gather no moss. So if you keep at the same thing time and again, you build your skills, and I think that's something which helps you in the long run. If you keep on moving from one job to another or one sort of industry to another, I believe that learnings could be a little superficial. The third is I would say that there should be constant curiosity to learn. Now, I mean, just take our own business right now, for example. I mean, in the last 3-4 years, everything that we learned in marketing is now put on its head with this entire data, tech, AI.
Correct.
And if people who don't, I mean, including people like me who have been 40 years in this business, if we don't sort of reskill ourselves, I mean, we are gone. So I think there you have to have that. If you, from a skill standpoint, the sort of interest and the desire to be more curious, to learn. I think these three things would be important. And I think, at least in media part, I think you need to be comfortable in numbers.
Oh,
You need to be able to do mental maths.
that's important. Yeah. Which was one career decision you felt was risky, but it sort of paid off handsomely?
Oh, without a doubt, when I moved from Star TV to GroupM, so there was a after Coke, there was a 1 year when I joined Star TV to set up their marketing department. I got some of my great friendships from that 1 year, but for whatever reasons, that wasn't working out. So it was literally one of those where I said, "This is not working out here. This area is not." So I said, "Let's." So I quit. I quit without a job in hand. So the next day, this is also a little story of sorts. So I remember the next day, as it turned out, there was Ranjankapur, who was that time running Ogilvy, is my mentor also, and as my wife Sini's her mama, cousin mama. So anyway, so we've known him forever. So he was coming home for lunch, and he said, "I've got one guy from Hong Kong. His name is andrenair, and he's come here to India. He's trying to set up a media thing out here. Can I bring him for lunch?" I said, "Of course." And as it turned out, I said, "Please, I know Andre because during my star days when I was for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I was in Hong Kong. So at that time, when I was in that period, I couple of parties and all these things, I met Andre. So it was great to meet him. And then he told me this is what I'm trying to form. Then 3 days later, when I remember it was in Taj Land's End. We went to the bar and we had a long evening, till about maybe 2:33 in the morning. Had a long chat. Andre is an absolute. He's fantastic. So at the end of it, I said, "My God, I used to have this chip on my shoulder about saying, client, how to know the agency, is it a serious business, all the rest of it." So, but then whatever I spoken to this man and whatever I was saying, it sounded pretty interesting. So then I just said, why not? So I took that move, and it as it turned out, that has really defined my career. I could, if I was in a marketing head of a client company or something, God knows where I'd have landed up. Here I've been able to do a few things.
Serendipity.
So yeah, so without a doubt, that one moving to the agency side was my risky but game changing decision.
Who is the one boss did you learn the maximum from? Which boss influenced you and did you learn
So
maximum
to
from?
Andre Nair and Joy Gupta. Andre Nair, he taught me the entire piece about the ropes of agency stuff. And Joy Gupta was my first boss in PNG. So I joined. He used to head market research out there. I sort of after my sales training, I went and was allotted market research at that point in time. He was fabulous. I mean, just the a way to approach research and take it away from some arcane, very statistical and tough to understand kind of thing into a good business tool. I think he was fantastic in that. So, how to look at data, how to interpret data, how to design research, all that kind of stuff. It's actually helped me a lot even now.
Perfect. So now that you've been a boss for many, many years, what is your one career advice you give to people who sort of seem stuck in their careers or not moving ahead? What is one or two pieces of advice you would give to young professionals?
Depending on which stage of life you're at, but assuming it's mid or late career, I would say understand, have a very clear idea of what your strength is and leverage that. And two, constant learning, relearning. And let me now preface what I've just said. These two things, understand your strengths, leverage them, and constantly keep on trying to improve your learning curve. Now, why do I say what I'm saying right now? I am now in my 40th year of work. I break up a career into each deciles. The first 10 years, to my mind, is mastering the craft. You should be a sponge first 2 3 years, understand your craft, totally understand everything there is in terms of the technical aspects of the business. And once you've sort of, at this point in time, there's not too much difference between you and your peers in terms of how where you move in a career. The next 10 years is when you actually put all that you've learned, and that's the time you move into different orbits. So that's the time, typically in that 11 to 20 years, that's the time when you suddenly see people may have started at one thing, but some people are completely different. The third decade is one which is I call the payback time. That's a time when you invested 20 years, and that's a time both in terms of financial rewards, in terms of recognition, in terms of all the lovely Maslowian stuff is coming back to you at that point in time. And that's a payback period. And the fourth decade, frankly, is a time when you are actually fighting relevance, because by that time, younger people have come in. You're probably the same job can be done for a low cost by somebody who's actually younger than you. So what is it that you're bringing to the party? Now, I think depending where your career has got stuck at what stage, you really need to start thinking that what is it like. If for the people who are right now in the last 30 to 40 years, in the manner of speaking, if you're fighting relevance, like today, how am I fighting relevance? I'm right now trying to spend more time trying to read up everything on data, AI, martech, trying to actually have conversations with people smarter than myself, trying to blunder my way through things that I don't understand, so through that I can actually learn a bit more. I see a lot of people getting scared and avoiding altogether. I think that can be lethal. You'll be cast aside very.
That's a recipe for disaster.
If you're in an earlier stage where you find that the payback is not coming, that's the time when you probably have to leverage your strengths. And leverage your strengths, and because all of us have some strengths. So I think quite if we all want to do, look, in a career, you could be running a P&L, you could be a domain specialist, you could be a client specialist when we're talking about our agency world, you could be running some, okay, like I was talking domain, broad, like planner, buyer, creative, but you could also be equally be a specialist like a search, social. So I'm just the point is, if there are a bunch of these things that you can have careers in, many of us try to take the say that I want to go up the path only by being the P&L head, general manager, MD, so on and so forth. Maybe that's not your calling, in which case find out what your calling is and exploit that, because if you keep on flogging a dead horse,
Yeah,
you aren't going to work.
correct.
I know whether that helps.
In agency life, pitching is a very important process. You continuously pitching. Obviously, you're trying to retain clients, but pitching with them with new ideas, new business. How do you prepare for a pitch? And what is your own process? Because obviously, at your level, sometimes you may also be involved in pitches. So, how do you prepare for a pitch?
The first thing you do is set up a pitch team and have a pitch leader. Um, the second thing you do is totally invest time in understanding the brief. This is the part which sometimes doesn't happen. You're in a hurry to you get the brief, you do a superficial reading of it, you and then just start. It's like you get an exam paper and you start without thinking, just go start writing answers. Here, quite often, look, finally, why is a guy doing a pitch? He wants to to be in a better position for where he is right now. So you have to truly understand the landscape and say, okay, what is he not getting today that we think we can bring to the party? What exactly seems to be his key problem? Because quite often in the brief, what they write is not the real issue. They may be looking at something else. I think the ability to come down and to the heart and say that this is the real problem that we have to fix. If you can be clear about that, then you have your North Star, and then pretty much the pitch all gets oriented towards delivering that North Star. Otherwise, you're delivering a case study. So, it's a pitch cannot be, typically, they'll give you a problem pertaining to one of the brands. You have to do strategy, you got to do buying, you got to do. Now, you treat that like a planning case. That is, I have to give you a best strategy. I think you're probably missing the thing. Yeah, of course, they're looking for what you're doing, but what is it that they're looking for, which you have to bring alive through this case?
How important are selling skills in an agency or media business to win the accounts?
Obviously, critical importance. So, I would say storytelling, selling skills, and presentation skills, I put them all into one bucket. Now,
Can you elaborate on storytelling skills?
selling is all about trying to get a certain proposition or proposal bought. Now, there are four ways I've found of influencing people. One is using logic, and just say that hardcore logic, reasoning, all that. Second is by using authority. So my way or the highway. I mean, you're coming from a position of authority and see you're saying we have to do this because I'm telling you to do this. Third is the ability to vision, to actually attract people by saying something which suddenly captures their imagination. And the fourth is by bridging. We are in this position, you are in that position. How do we bridge our differences? So currently, I'm sure bridging game is what I'm sure the in the entire US India tariff things, I'm sure that's what they're right now trying to go for. When it's coming to pitching, there's no question of using your authority. Here, there's no logic works. Logic works a lot. But I think the entire piece of attracting and visioning is the thing which actually works much more in a pitch. And that's where storytelling comes in. So if you have to look at most agencies and most of these masters who've done it in the past, they build a story. They'll start at a very human story, and through that human story, they'll like, for example, if I have to go back to what I just talked about my IPL thing, we did storytelling, but we did storytelling with hardcore numbers. And our story there was that we had come and told you something. Those numbers actually stand good even today. Now, as you're embarking on this new exercise, your stakes are higher. So this is what you need to do. Now, the same thing, if I try to do it in just say, this is what it is, this is what the numbers are, he may not have bought it. But because I contextualized it to the last time I met him, it became a story. So I would say that that's what storytelling is. And therefore, that and that's therefore so close to selling skills.
But that's very interesting and think kind of makes a lot of sense. Storytelling is how you get the hook. Obviously, you work in India and globally. What is one skill that you find that Indians don't use as much as our global peers?
I think I mentioned empathy.
Empathy. Can you just elaborate on that?
So it's, most of the times when I've had global people coming in, there were two kinds, especially in the old PNG and Coke days. We'd have these people flying in, and India was all, now it's becoming increasingly more important. Even then it was. So there would be some who would just come in and say, this is what we do and this is what makes us great. And then there would be a few who'd come in and say, okay, now let me try to understand your problems and what is it that you need. The fact that the latter approach just endears you that much because here's a person who's actually trying to connect with you and who's trying to connect, and whether or not he does or not is not the point. Which is where, again, going back to the Sorrell thing, when he would come in, I would always feel, I mean, he would be tough as nails. But if I had a problem and if I told him,
Martinsorrell.
but if I had a problem, I say I need your help on this, you can bet your bottom dollar that same day he'll call this. So I know that I have this person as a resource. I think that is what in a small, at least when I went into the markets, I think that's where at least the tempos. Wasn't that long. I was there for just about 2 years, but that's the kind of thing I was trying to build. That is there something that we can do out there? So it's just empathy.
Gotcha. Now, in the media and advertising world, there's obviously instances of sometimes money gets exchanged for winning new businesses, and what is your stance in such situations as a leader? What do you advise your teams to do?
Just stay away from that. Yeah, no question about it.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm very old-fashioned and yeah, and I mean I don't have any zero tolerance for this. Why would you do that?
Because there are a lot of instances when people resort to all sorts of things to win.
No, you actually have people saying that we'll manage this system. I think that's completely wrong. If people are, I mean, if you're trying to whatever you're trying to give favors and try to get business, that's not wrong. That's completely not wrong.
And one more question is, obviously worldwide agency businesses are built on getting a commission or a feedback from the media owners. In such a scenario, how do you ensure that your clients' interests are well protected? What measures or what processes do you ensure that are put in place?
This is where I briefly mentioned that how to leverage investments, and why is it that clients would like to go to larger agencies to sort of leverage scale? that's where this question becomes relevant. Let's do flashback to 30, 40 years back. There used to be, in those days, there used to be gross and net, still is gross and net. And there used to be the entire thing of 100 rupees, where 15% is agency commission given by media owner. When it started, it was a media owner giving commission to the agency to take this thing and give it there. Now, over the years, it obviously, as the marketers, their sort of consolidation grew and their scale and strength grew, it became very clear that the person appointing an agency is not the media owner, but a client. So there's no, in our minds, there's no doubt in our agency world that the person who appoints us is the client. Having said that, we are still representing the media owner. So in a scenario where everything used to be given and then used to go to the media, the client, now it's becoming that the client is paying you. Now question is, what is happening with the media owner? Now two things are there. There is this question of overriding agency discount, volume discounts and all the rest of it. Now that is something which it happens from various, it happens in some markets and less so in others. But the important thing in this one is there always needs to be some degree of transparency and disclosure. The two words are different, transparency and disclosure. So this is now, there is a huge amount of effort for us if we have to leverage scale and try to get, and in turn walk the balance of saying, how do we get the best deal for a client? At the same time, how can we manage a media owner's interests? There is a tightrope to be walked in a very, in a proper business-oriented manner. Right? So I think there's a certain marketing practices and business practices that go towards that end. So those are the things that you have to focus on. And I think you should keep your conversations with your clients. That part should be transparent. And if there is a case of, say, volume discounts coming in, so you have to then, there's a rule of engagement on whether or not they should be shared. If, for example, somebody is barely spending any kind of money or not be, because quite often you have to, a media owner will only give you an overriding discount if you're able to grow his billings, if you're able to sometimes increase his share, or if you're able to increase the yield. These are the three things that you're going to do. Now, yield meaning take price up in something or the other. Now, price up can be in a number of ways. Actually taking the base price up, it could also be taking, say, valuable properties like whatever, impact properties and stuff like that. So all the degrees are there available with an agency. Now, sometimes you have to say that I can only do it if clients are not willing to make commitments in terms of spends, or how much is the kind of volume that is going to come in. Now, these are conversations you should, I encourage conversations with clients where if we are able to, if we have to, if there is a certain critical mass of volumes and if we are getting some discounts, we can share them for the certain rule of engagement. That is, it's a discussion which one is happy to have. So, and I think if you keep it clandestine, that's when it gets into murky land. If you keep it as a business orientation, then the people actually prefer it. Now, is there?
No, I think that's perfect. So, as we wrap, a couple of more quick questions. Vikram, which is one book you have read and you've sort of recommended to others?
In that case, in line of the earlier question that you asked, I thought Freakonomics was good. Freakonomics by Levitt. So the very first chapter was incentives. And in the chapter on incentives, he very clearly brings out, for anybody who says that, is it wrong to have agency discounts or this, or is it bad to have, for example, we also get client incentives. So we can get incentives from client, we can get incentives from media owners. If we are able to deliver certain savings, or if you're able to deliver business growth, we get incentives. Similarly, if you're able to do certain things, what the current word these days is JBPs, right? All these joint business plans that you do.
Joint business plans, correct.
It has been popularized by the big tech. Now these JBPs are effectively incentive blueprints.
Correct.
So I think that is the part which actually drives, and that's, I think, the way to look at it. So understand that there are different parts to the entire value chain. in this entire ecosystem. There's the clients, the agencies, media owners. How do you actually forge good JBPs with each one and with clear measurable sort of outcomes? And those are the incentives which can actually work. So anybody who wants to find out how to do this better, read Stephen Levitt chapter 1, economics.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to ask this one more time. Can you name your favorite movies? Now, if you were to sort of, if you were a freshly minted MBA from IIM Calcutta, and which career path would you choose and why?
Which?
Career path would you choose and why?
No, I would, if I had to do it all over again, I would still continue with marketing. Marketing does turn me on. So only thing is I would probably, in my MBA, I would index a little bit much more on the AI and MarTech side. And and I would actually allow, in fact, I continue to date, my pursuit is to actually try to see how we can use the power of AI and MarTech to actually solve branding issues. So I would, at a sophisticated level, how to have brands form a heart and a place in the heart and minds of consumers. If we can actually get that, I think that is going to be a total game changer. And I am pretty confident that the way technology is moving right now, it is stuff which can be done. I mean, the way we all use AI now as that's our assistant, right? We're using it for everything, each and everything. We're using it, getting second opinions, third opinions, then forming our own better one and moving forward.
Absolutely.
So now, like that, I can. It's just a question of time when people apply themselves on the branding piece, what they've done so well on performance.
And as you sort of move to the next chapter of life, what's next in store for you?
No, right now in my stages that after completing 10 years of my CEO bit stint in Madison, I've got my successor on board, Ajit Verghese. So he's been on board for the last now 4 months. So I am now playing much more of a non-exec, but working along with Sam from the board, working on the softer but larger issues, but not day-to-day running of things. So I would say currently, for example, as we speak, I don't know whether it was in the release a couple of days back, our entire planning system, we're calling it GPS. And in that, it is powered by an AI thing, which human plus AI piece, which we call brain.
Oh.
BRAIN, brain. So this is something that we embarked on a year back. And
So is it like a AI a media planning tool?
yeah, so it is proprietary to Madison, something which actually takes into account all our past stuff, whether it is our presentations, decks, media plans, all of that, and it feeds into the AI, and we've got a full process by which we are actually. So now, typically in a, say, take a pitch or a annual planning process or whatever it might be, at that point in time, it takes 2-3 weeks to actually put together everything about consumer, competition, channel, cost, all those kind of things. To put a full analysis in, it takes quite a lot of time. This is now cutting it all down to hours or days, in 1 or 2 days, and it can, because the data is all fed in. So it's not stuff which will be going to be available in LLMs like your Chat GPTs and Perplexities and all. This is our own internal stuff with our own rules. So, for example, if we want to put in certain elements of marketing theories like Byron Sharp, or we want to put in certain matrices like BCG or whatever else it might be, we've got a certain way in which we've actually coded that into this. Now, depending on your life stage of your brand, what is it that you need to do? So it's a much more trained version, which is, if you take an output from a standard LLM, you'll get, what you'll get from here is going to be completely different. It's going to be something which is actually, which gives a better analysis of everything. And then
So is it is this tool being deployed, or is sort of in the works?
It's an ever evolving one, but now it's launched. We're using it for our clients. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So Vikram, thanks for taking the time and speaking to us.
Absolute pleasure.
It was a pleasure and privilege talking to you. Thank you so much.
No, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.